The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Two Beards Talking. I am Daniel Sanders.
And I'm Matt Lassiter.
And as we always do at the start of every show, we want to give a big shout out to the troops out there, to the men and women serving overseas and on the home front. We appreciate everything y'all are doing for us. Keep up the good work. Come home safe. We're all rooting for you here back home. And if you're still in pandemic mode, then shout out to the first responders as well.
I quit pandemicking 2 months ago.
I've still got my pandemic decorations hung up.
Are you wearing your brown pants?
I never switched over to my riot decorations. So,
well, damn.
So we've got a special guest joining us today, Ross Greenwood, former chief of police for the Sylvania Police Department. Was that right? Yes. And then what are you doing now, Ross? Are you still in law enforcement?
Yes, I am. I'm a police officer. I'm the assistant chief of police in Minton, Alabama.
Okay. All right. And how long have you been in law enforcement?
27 years come July.
27 years. So you're almost eligible for that gold watch.
2 years ago.
Now, Sylvania, Mentone, they're small towns. They're the kind of Mayberry towns that you think of where everybody knows everybody and so on and so forth. Have you worked in any larger jurisdictions, say like maybe Birmingham, Huntsville? What would be the largest jurisdiction you've worked in?
Probably the largest jurisdiction I've ever worked in is I worked for DeKalb County prior to the year 2000. I worked over in Jackson County.
Okay.
Around here, large jurisdictions they're non-existent.
Right.
If you want to work in the area in which you live, you're going to have to travel to get to a large jurisdiction.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize this. In Alabama, about 70% of your police departments in this state are less than 10 officers.
I did not know that.
Dude, Powell is 2. Literally 2.
Well, I knew that about Powell, but I wouldn't have. I never would have expected. You said 70%.
70%. Large departments like Birmingham, Huntsville, Montgomery, Mobile, Tuscaloosa. Those are not common police departments here because they're so large.
Right. Most
of your police departments in Alabama are small departments because we're covered up with small towns.
Right. Okay. So now, in 27 years of law enforcement, with everything that we've got going on right now, the riots, the protesting, just the total shit show going on, in 27 years, have you seen anything before like we've got going on right now?
Not remotely close, no. Not even on this scale.
You can chime in anytime you want to, Matt.
I was letting you have fun.
No, I know you got questions burning.
I just what's it like? What's the differences between like Mentone? Like, what's it like up there? Like, I'm curious because it's a spread out population.
Mentone is a melting pot of different people, and when I say that, a lot of towns, let's say Sylvania, I'm going to compare it to Sylvania. Sylvania, yes, is a little larger area-wise, population-wise, but Mentone is more of a vacation resort area still, like it has been for 100 years.
Right.
You have people who are very wealthy there, and then you also have people who are normal working people who live there full time. When I say the wealthy people, most of them have the nice house on the brow the little cabin, and it's the vacation spot.
Yeah.
Very interesting to work there because you don't know what class of person that you're going to be dealing with. It could be the upper crust from Atlanta that's just there for the weekend, or Mentone has areas just like everywhere else in Alabama, very rural. The good old boys,
Yeah.
Like to drink until they pass out or like to fight. I mean, Mentone's very diverse. You have no idea what that person's walk of life may be.
Right.
So it has its own challenges.
Okay. So you would definitely say you enjoy working for Mentone. Now we gotta address the elephant in the room.
What's that?
You know what I'm talking about.
I'm unaware.
With everything going on right now, of course, the George Floyd thing.
Oh, that elephant.
Yeah, that elephant. There's several elephants that we're going to address. So now with the George Floyd thing, as a law enforcement officer, is it... I don't want to say standard operating procedure because every department has their own SOP regarding things. But as far as detaining an individual, which I've seen video footage already that kind of blows up the idea that George Floyd was just an innocent man who just got caught up in bad things and was murdered. I've seen surveillance footage from his arrest showing where he was resisting arrest with the officers and everything. When you have an unruly suspect like that who's resisting arrest, is it... Again, I don't want to say standard operating procedure, but for lack of a better term, is it SOP for an officer to hold an individual down, say like this officer did, putting his knee on the back of his, it was on the back of his neck, I believe.
Close to it, somewhere around there.
That whole episode raises a lot of questions, not just with myself, but also with other law enforcement officers that I have spoke with, because that is a hot topic now. And in the beginning, I was telling everybody, because what you see looks terrible.
Yes.
And I said, well, you're only looking at just a few minutes worth of video.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what happened beforehand that led up to this situation to where the officers had to pin him.
Right.
And I told everybody, I said, look, don't form an opinion until you have all the facts. And right now you don't. You're just looking at the bad, which the media is awesome at cutting off, parts of video and splicing stuff together to make it present the most atrocious action you've ever seen. There's a lot of questions, though. Why were those officers so brazen in their actions? Mm-hmm. Our procedure, if you have to hold someone down for that long of time, I'm going to speak like a completely different animal than Minneapolis police, because we don't have 4 officers in our whole department.
Right.
I have been in situations to where, I had to hold somebody down until help got there, because if I let them up, they were probably going to seriously injure me, could kill me. Sometimes in rural departments, you do what you have to do because you're the only one.
Right.
I know that doesn't fit in Minneapolis because they have a large number of officers. It's not adding up. It's just not adding up. I don't understand why the officers did that. I don't understand why they did not try to harness themselves, knowing that they were being videoed by everyone. I would like to see the officers' body cams from the initial contact all the way to when the suspect was loaded into the ambulance and transported from the scene.
Right.
There's just a lot of unanswered questions there. And I've heard the conspiracy theory it was a set-up deal. Well, that makes as much sense as all the other theories that I've heard, too.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about that is, I'm not law enforcement. I have worked in law enforcement in the military. I was military police for a while, and what I noticed during that whole, I'll just round it up, 10-minute video. At no time did I ever see any of the officers on the radio with dispatch or anything along those lines.
Or issuing any verbal commands.
That's another oddity with that case. They had to have been on their radio at some point because an ambulance did come.
Right.
But like I say, I don't have an answer for that because
we don't have all the facts.
We don't have all the facts, and there's a lot of questions that I have, and like many other police officers who've been in this job, well, they don't have to be in this job 20 plus years to have questions.
Right.
I mean, that is a strange incident from the very beginning to the end.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Minneapolis Police Department, due to their size, I'm sure that they're well-trained officers. They said the one officer had 19 complaints or 18 complaints in 19 years. That's another one of those topics. It sounds terrible. What I want to know is what was the outcome of those complaints? Because a police officer can get a complaint for not using his turn signal or not dimming his lights.
And not only that, I've seen instances where, a suspect, perpetrator, whatever you call them, they file a complaint against the officer just for the sake of they got in trouble and they want to see the officer get in trouble.
Absolutely. That's 100% correct. But they don't voice the outcome of those disciplinary hearings, even if he had some. I mean, we don't know. We just know he had 19 complaints.
Right.
There's an old saying in law enforcement, if you've got an officer who's not getting complaints, he's not doing his job. Because people do not like authority figures.
Right.
They don't like to be told what to do.
Right.
Hey, he knows me.
But, I mean, and that's a perfect example of some more of the questions that I have that have not been asked, or if they have been asked, they haven't been made available to the public.
Right. Yeah, it's the whole thing is just it's fishy to me.
Well, I can say, speaking as an arrestee and not an arrestor, that anytime I've been put on the ground forcefully, I deserved it.
And when we do that, that is and I feel that I speak for 99.9% of the police officers out there. Mm-hmm. We want our arrests to go uneventful.
Yeah.
We want them to be peaceful, calm, routine, because when we do have to put hands on somebody, of course there's a lot of paperwork.
Yes.
But in the day and age where we are now, where we're under the microscope like we are, we do not want to take a risk of hurting someone and basically just being on the news.
Yeah. And and that's the funny thing about it. I was just reading a local news story earlier today, as a matter of fact, where a Rainsville officer was issuing a traffic ticket, and the person that gave him the ticket was verbally abusive, threatening to the officer. Of course, they reviewed the body cam footage, and then the DeKalb Sheriff's Office issued a warrant for his arrest.
Right.
But, I mean, it's with everything that's going on, I think everything that's going on, people are starting to get the idea that they don't have to comply, they don't have to listen, they can, like you said, nobody respects authority figures anymore.
You're absolutely right. When I first began my career, if you cussed us out, harassed us on the side of the road, you were going to jail. We didn't send the body cam footage anywhere because we didn't have body cams. Those were not out yet.
Right.
The judge, the courts actually took our word that what happened was true and correct.
Yeah.
And we would put the person in jail, and he would be dealt with pretty sternly for resisting arrest or harassing the police. But, hitting back on what you said just previous, everything that's going on has a trickle-down effect.
Mm-hmm.
We have officers even in our small county here that are getting grief off the public for no reason whatsoever.
Aside from the fact that they just wear the uniform.
The only reason they're targets, they have a uniform on.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of incidents happen to me, and I was not per se on a call or in a law enforcement capacity besides I had on my uniform, and, one of them I stopped to eat lunch.
Yeah.
And, it's, like I say, it's the trickle-down effect. It's rolling down here. There's a lot of people who are, I want to say, testing the waters.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's this officer going to do? What's his breaking point that I can aggravate him enough that he's going to try to say something, take an action against me, and here we go.
Yep.
People trying to get that 15 minutes of fame. They want that. That's the proliferation of video cameras everywhere. If I piss him off enough, I'll become famous. They leave out the part where you might get shot in the ass, but you're going to be famous.
And, something else to kind of bolster what you said, too, or add to it. A lot of city governments, when an officer gets sued, not just city governments, state governments, county governments, a lot of times they had just rather settle out of court, pay the person, and let them go away and go back to conducting business, which I think is wrong because that's fed a lot of people this idea like, hey, if he screws up just in the least little bit, I'm going to file a lawsuit. I'm not going to get all the money I was promised or intended upon getting, but I'm going to get something. It's going to be worth my time.
And and moving on from that, it's created this whole, like with Jermaine Johnson, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We talked.
Dill called it.
We talked about it on the show yesterday that Jermaine Johnson was, and we actually had the audio from the clip as well, where he was in Birmingham at a rally and was saying, we need to tear shit down. Verbatim, that's what he said. We need to tear shit down.
I saw the clip. You're exactly right.
And then just a few days later, a warrant was issued for his arrest. He was brought up on charges for inciting a riot.
Correct.
What did I say?
That he would get off. Yeah, you did. And sure enough, just a few days after he was arrested, miraculously, the charges were dismissed.
I'm speechless. I agree with everything you said. He was videoed voicing his intent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the intent turned into action.
Yes.
And it's not hidden. It's not shady. It's not like those pictures of Bigfoot that are all pixelated and everything. Mm-hmm. This is clear as a bell. He screwed up. He was guilty of what they got the warrant on him for.
Yeah.
And then it got dismissed. How does that happen?
I think him being a regional celebrity kind of played into that a little bit. He's pretty big around this area.
I think that had a little bit to do with it. However, I'm still going to call a spade. And
Who's that shit again, man?
I still think that, the fact that with everything going on with the race tensions and everything, he's an African-American male. The judge was an African-American. The DA in Jefferson County is an African-American. I honestly do believe that race played a part in that.
And that being said, every court case that comes up sets the precedents for the next court case.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone else gets gets arrested for inciting a riot and they don't voice it as loudly as he did, or they don't do as much damage as what that group did. I'm not going to say he did because there was a group.
Right.
What's that person going to face? Are they going to get convicted of it?
Well, I think any lawyer worth their salt would be able to say, well, now hold on a second. Y'all just let this guy go for the exact same thing.
Right. So you're either going to get judged unfairly or our criminal justice system is going to start walking with more of a limp than it already does.
Yeah.
It's just like the officers over in Georgia, in Atlanta. If that's the new way to prosecute police officers, no wonder they're leaving.
Yeah. Matt, you and I were just talking about it outside before the show. Right now, there's only 2 precincts in Atlanta that are still operating. Everybody else is...
One literally had 3 officers report for duty.
I saw that the other night, and those officers over there, there's safety and strength in numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to find out what they're doing and how they're handling this, because I don't see how they can effectively provide a service to the citizens there, because sometimes it does take more than 1, 2, 3 officers, especially in a big metropolitan area such as Atlanta. They have like numerous officers show up to calls.
Yeah.
They have to. I've also found it funny that there's no news coming out of Atlanta right now except what the city officials want you to hear. There's other police walkouts planned where they're going to get the blue flu. There's already police departments that are not as high profile as Atlanta and New York that have already done that.
Right.
We were already begging for police officers. Nobody wants our job.
Yeah.
I mean,
nobody wants to paint a target on their own back.
No, they don't. I mean, and the way we've been demonized over the past few years, you have to go through a police academy for 12 to 14 weeks. You're guaranteed night shift. You're not really going to make enough money to justify the action you're doing, the job you're doing. That's not real inviting to somebody that's wanting to get into the job market.
Boy, it kind of sounds like the military.
Actually, yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well, it's the military, but at least in this sense, you get to go home every night.
Actually, no, I don't. Did they in the academy? Did they make y'all stay in a barracks? Or
yes, you don't go home every night.
I wasn't talking about. I was talking about like job wise, not academy versus boot camp or basic training.
Oh well.
Here lately, we have less officers going home every night. The rate that police officers are being murdered in the street right now is astronomical. I've heard some of them comparing some of the riots and civil unrest that's in cities to what our military went through in Iraq and Afghanistan, the carnage, the destruction. And what I think some people are missing, hey, this is on U.S. soil.
Yeah.
This is by U.S. citizens. This is not a foreign country you're looking at.
Yeah.
And sad thing is, it's growing every day.
Yeah. And, I mentioned it on the show last night. I was looking at a September 11th memorial at the Alcatraz Museum in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, wherever. And they were playing a video talking about it, showing all the news clips. And there were little kids in there, 6, 7, 8 years old, asking questions about it. And it got me thinking, these kids weren't alive when this happened.
Right.
They're looking at it as history. We know it as life.
Right. Yes.
And, they never experienced the tragedy that happened that day. But they also didn't experience the unity that this country had for a year or two after all that.
That's true. My son now, who's 18, was born the month after all that happened. So, no, he didn't see any of how the United States actually came together. I remember all the American flags. Even the fire trucks had the big American flags on the back of their trucks. Everybody pulled together as an American.
Yeah.
What happened?
We've I've got an idea of what happened, but
Obama.
I do too.
I'll say it. I don't give a shit.
No, I agree. He was the first president. I truly believe that man demonized us. He did a lot of things as far as pulling funding from law enforcement. He hadn't been in office very long, and he invited that one police officer and I want to say it was a professor from Cambridge or somewhere where the professor had been arrested because the officer wanted to see his ID when his home alarm was going off, and
right.
the guy refused it. The president invited him to the White House for a beer. Why did he start dabbling in municipal government when he's the president?
Yeah, that I don't know.
Yeah, that's
definition of below your pay grade.
Exactly.
And you know, the other thing is the lighting up the White House with the rainbow colors for the LGBT, the alphabet people, and then
There's two sets of alphabet people, so
no, there's alphabet people and alphabet agencies.
Yeah, but I just call them people.
But you know, when Dallas happened, the shooter killed all those cops in Dallas. Nowhere, I didn't see a blue light anywhere lit up on the White House.
I remember I watched probably the same news segments you did about it, and I've always been one of these people, yes, I'm conservative, and I adhere to the rule of law like everyone else does. And you don't want to believe that we have a man in office who is set out to destroy our country.
Right.
And I think Barack Obama was very smart. He slipped this in on us, and we didn't see it coming.
Yeah. Now, Atlanta. Let's talk about Atlanta for a little bit.
Oh boy.
Of course, I'm talking about the Rayshard Brooks shooting.
Sure.
So let's break it down. He was asleep in his vehicle, blocking the drive-thru at Wendy's. Officers are called and respond. They get him out of the vehicle. They give him a field sobriety test and a breathalyzer, which he fails both.
Correct.
Spectacularly, might I add.
Yes. And officers decide he is too dangerous to be out on the road. So they try to detain him. He fights with them, grabs the taser, runs off, turns around, fires the taser at one of the officers, and in turn gets shot and killed. In a case like that, I know you can't speak for every officer, so I'm just going to ask you personally, in your opinion, if you've got a case where an individual is just too drunk to make it home safely. Of course, they're still going to face DUI charges, so on and so forth, but odds are, I know what I would do in the situation, which is throw them in the tank, let them out the next morning.
Correct.
Let them just sleep it off.
The DUI law, or DWI, I believe it's called in Georgia, I'm not real sure. When we make a DUI arrest, it's a double-edged sword, sort of, in a positive way. First of all, we take the intoxicated person who has the potential to harm someone off the road. Okay. If we allow that person to leave under the influence of any substance, regardless whether or not they fail the breathalyzer, if there's alcohol or a foreign substance in their system that inhibits their ability to operate a motor vehicle, whatever, we are personally liable for that person's actions. And we can be sued because we turned them loose. And in reality, when we come up on someone who fails field sobriety, they fail the handheld PBT, portable breathalyzer test, you go to jail. It's a no-brainer.
Right.
You know, it's DUI all day long. You're passed out. I say passed out because nobody's going to take a nap in the drive-thru at Wendy's.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, he was passed out.
Yeah.
Or coming down off being passed out. I mean, but there's so many reasons why you don't turn someone loose. You know, number one, they're a threat to public safety.
Right.
They're a threat to themselves. I still can't see anything those officers did that was wrong.
Yeah. And, you know, the funny thing is a taser with proper training is considered non-lethal or less than lethal.
Correct.
With proper training.
Correct.
I'm assuming Rayshard Brooks did not have proper training.
I would doubt that.
And typically they're about 50,000 volts that they run?
Yes.
Yeah. 50,000 volts constantly on a person. First and foremost, Rayshard Brooks doesn't know if one of these officers had a condition that may have been compounded by being hit with a taser.
That's true. That's why we have to go through training before we can even carry that taser in our vehicle,
Yes.
much less deploy it.
Yes.
The training, I mean, I'm not going to say it's simple, but it's not complicated. They just teach you about the taser. They teach you about the operation and how you deploy it, and then you get shot yourself.
Yes. And it's not pleasant.
No, it's not pleasant.
I've never been shot with the barbs, but dry stones hurt too.
They do.
Real bad.
But they don't kill you.
No, they do not.
But they do incapacitate you.
And that's my whole point about the thing is there was 2 cops on scene. What if there'd just been one?
Yeah.
And what if he'd landed that shot with the taser? Well, now that cop's incapacitated. Well, now I can take your gun, and now I can do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly why when we go through taser training that we meet that less lethal force with deadly force because of the consequences that could happen if an officer gets incapacitated. I mean, it's common sense. If you take any type of weapon away from a police officer, especially in a highly populated area, because how many liability cases is that in that area? That's why they're trained to do what they do. They return, or I say return fire, they fire a lethal weapon at the less lethal because the officer does not want to get incapacitated. And, you know, they tried to go, I believe someone said they tried to go for his gun. Okay, in Alabama, that is a lethal force on the assailant's part if you try to go for our gun.
Right.
This whole situation's messed up.
Yeah. You know, just days before this happened, the DA there in Atlanta was talking about how a taser can be a lethal weapon.
I think he needs to talk to the people who build taser because they sell that as a less lethal. And when I went through the training, it didn't matter if you had a pacemaker, any type of heart condition. It was not going to affect that.
Well, what he was saying, the point I was making, you know, just a few days prior to this, he says a taser can be a lethal weapon, But then right after this happened, he's saying law enforcement was not justified because a taser is non-lethal.
That's just a double standard. And how do you expect men and women in law enforcement to work in a job that is under the microscope such as it is, but you have double standards?
Mm-hmm.
Not just law enforcement. Nobody can work under those conditions.
Yeah.
But what really shocked me the most, and being a police officer, it doesn't matter how much time you have in the career.
Right.
This was just a shock to everyone, and this is how we're taught in the academy. When you obtain warrants for a person's arrest, you have to have hard evidence.
Yes.
You have to have statements to support each charge that you get. You can't just throw a charge on there because you think it fits. It has to be verbatim out of the law book. This is what he did.
Right.
How did the district attorney hand down 11 warrants when the investigation was not finished?
Right.
And you don't, through the course of an investigation, start obtaining warrants before the investigation's through. It's not a let's go and get this warrant because this is where we're at. It's you finish the investigation, you compile all your evidence, your statements, everything. You take it to the district attorney. Mm-hmm. And in a case like that, I would have thought the district attorney's office would have needed at least 14 days to a month mm-hmm. to get a determination of what this officer should be charged with if he should have been charged.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I've said it constantly on this show in the past. This nation has lost the idea of the presumption of innocence.
Oh, it has. It's you're guilty until proven innocent now.
Yeah.
And I do believe that police officers should be held to a higher standard because
right.
we do know what the law is. But this is crazy.
It is.
I mean, this is just crazy.
And I'm not going to say I love when stuff like this happens because it is a horrible situation. But what I do love is all of the Facebook lawyers and legal experts that come out as a result. And anytime there's an instance like this where someone's running away and they're shot by law enforcement, well, why didn't they just shoot him in the leg? Why couldn't they just shoot him in the arm?
Because muscle memory.
Because
you fight how you train.
You're right. You fight how you train how you fight, and something else. We stop the threat. We don't train to kill anyone. We stop that threat. Mm-hmm. And someone may correct me on this, but if you shoot someone in the leg or the arm, that is cruel and unusual punishment.
I'd agree with that. And, you know, the way they trained us in the military is aim for the largest target available, which is the upper torso.
Right.
You're trying to aim at, from a side profile, an arm or a leg, you've got, depending on the size of the individual on average, maybe 8 to 10 inches of surface area that you're shooting at.
And law enforcement is trained the same way. I mean, there's only so many ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
I mean, we aim at the largest area possible, which is center mass, mm-hmm. in order to stop that threat as quickly as possible.
Yes.
We don't make headshots. A head is a
small target.
And a lot of people don't realize this, but in a life or death situation such as a shootout, your accuracy drops 60%.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, auditory exclusion, tunnel vision. There's a lot going through your mind. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but everyone else who hasn't been in a gunfight, seconds turn into minutes, minutes turn into hours.
Yes.
And, yeah, you want to hit the largest target available to you and stop that threat as quickly as possible. And that's it.
And then, you know, also you take into account that it was dark outside. It was nighttime.
Correct.
I'm not even going to mention his skin color, but it was dark outside and he's running. It's already hard to hit a moving target even in center mass.
Right.
Now you're talking about nighttime, low visibility, running in the dark, trying to hit a moving target that's, you know, the size of 6 inches.
Everybody's saying why the officer fires so many times. He did what was necessary. He fired until the threat stopped.
Yes.
3 rounds. That's not excessive.
No.
That's not excessive at all. And it's like you said, and I hate to say the color of it myself, but, I mean, it is what it is. If you're of a darker skin tone, you're camouflage at night.
Yes.
So now you have someone who is armed, who is intoxicated,
Who is camouflaged.
I don't know about the neighborhood or the area where he was. It's a Wendy's, but I'm sure there's other people there that he just became a threat to. Mm-hmm. You know, someone's going to have to go after him. Yeah. We don't just say, oh, he got away, you know, we'll get him next time. No, you go and you try to incarcerate that person.
And you know, I told you that earlier. There was a couple of shootings in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay, one of them was a protester that got shot in the leg. And here's what she did: she sat down, looked at her leg, realized she had been shot, and then calmly was explaining to people that she'd been shot in the leg. So do that with a violent criminal that you don't know has a gun. You shoot him in the leg. Well, he's still combat effective.
Yeah.
I can still shoot you with a hole in my leg.
Absolutely, and that just reaffirms why we shoot center mass, is because we want to neutralize that threat. We don't want to disable it, because we don't know if we are truly going to disable it. We don't know.
Right.
It's a cruel world. I hate to say it.
It is.
It's a cruel world, and, stopping the threat is what we're all about for the safety of the public.
Yeah. What's the expression? The good of the many outweighs the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, something along those lines.
Something like
Absolutely
that.
right. Yes.
And I'm sorry, but one intoxicated individual who fucked up, their needs are not as important as the needs of the people in the area.
Have you seen all the footage from that?
I've seen quite a bit of it. I can't say I've seen all of it.
I saw a few different angles. There was one where you see the police officer running past a vehicle that was occupied by a family, and she was screaming, why y'all shooting? Well, because so he don't come over here and kill you next. He's got to do this. This is his job. He doesn't enjoy shooting someone. It's just something he has to do.
The world we're living in has got so out of touch with what's right, just, and the basic benefit for everyone, like our law enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not the enemy. We're here to protect the public.
Yeah. And
as we've already stated, the last president has pretty well demonized us.
Yeah.
And you can do what he's done with any profession. You can pick out the really bad apples in any profession, and with the help of the media, you can change minds.
Right.
And I've spoke with a lot of people through the course of this whole chaos that's going on in our country. And a lot of people come up and say, well, why did the officer do that? Well, why didn't they do this? And I said, well, this is procedure, and this is why we do it. And they're like, well, that makes sense. I didn't know that. How many people don't know that, but before they get the facts, they're typing on social media, expressing their opinion, and then someone else agrees with them, and now you've got 2, 3, 4 people who think their opinion is the gospel.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yep. And if you're listening out there, just bear in mind, you are entitled to your opinion, but also bear in mind, I'm entitled to say your opinion sucks.
Well, it's one of those things where if I took 10 people and I videoed, and let's say they're all police officers and they're all in uniform, and I videoed 9 of them doing something really bad and 1 of them doing something really good, and I show you those videos, you're going to assume 90% of cops do really bad things. And that's all you see. You see all the bad stuff. You don't see the cops running out of buildings with children or saving children from wrecks or administering life-saving CPR. You don't see that.
Yeah.
And, through the course of the day, yes, there's going to be bad incidents in law enforcement, just like there's going to be with any government service that's there to protect the citizens. I don't care if it's the military, law enforcement, whomever. But like you just said, no one looks at the good. No one looks at like, hey, if y'all would just sit back and look, the positive is going to by far outweigh the negative.
Yeah.
But cops don't beat themselves on the chest. They say, oh, I'm just doing my job. And it goes unnoticed.
And the media is notorious. They did the same thing with us in the military.
Absolutely.
They didn't talk about us building this school for all these Iraqi children. They were more focused on this asshat over here that was throwing puppies off a cliff, or these jackasses over here making detainees get naked and have sex with each other.
How many boxes of cookies did you give out to the kids? How many coloring books? How many times did you interact with the public and society over there to say, hey, we're not the enemy, we're here to help?
Yeah.
It's the world's gotten soft. Society has gotten soft. We've been too coddled. We've had it too good. I mean, I hate to say it. I feel like I've had it too good. Every generation has it a little better than the last generation. Mm-hmm. And I think we forgot where we came from.
Yeah.
Have you seen where like the Gen Z people are just ripping apart hipster millennials? Like they're not talking smack on the conservatives because you don't see the conservatives out there going, "Oh, oppression." You see the leftist millennials out there, and they're like, "You guys are fucking bitches." Like literally, they're just, "You guys are being bitches," and it's hilarious.
Well, it's like I said again last night's episode. This is what we're seeing now, all of these people protesting and rioting and everything. If you look at the majority of the age demographic that's doing all of that, that's the generation of people that grew up getting a trophy for participating.
Thank you. Exactly.
Sorry, we dropped the ball, guys. That's my generation's bad.
Well, and backpedaling a little bit where you said everybody has their own opinion, and that is true. But one thing, just like in the military and law enforcement, we have a set of rules. We have a set of laws that we have to follow. The military has people on staff that will prosecute soldiers for violating those rules.
Yep.
Law enforcement has people on staff who prosecutes people for violating those rules. These rules are not our opinion. They were set forth by panels of people who said, okay, this is the best way for these guys and gals to handle this situation. This is what you're going to do.
Right.
We don't make the rules. We don't set the policies. We're doing what we're told. I feel if people don't like what we do, what about going to some of these lawmakers who are padding their own pockets and trying to get the law changed?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I want all the police officers that are still out there take a hard look at all these DAs and politicians that are hanging you out to dry right now.
And, not to play favorites with politics, but if you look in the majority of the cities where everything is just going to hell and back, Democratic mayor, Democratic DA.
Yeah, look at these elected officials, the ones that are hanging you out to dry. Yeah, get them gone.
Well, when did we abandon our American values?
Roughly 2008 to 2016.
Roundabout, yeah.
I mean, really, we've walked away from what it's like to be an American.
Yeah.
The World War II monuments are being torn down, the Vietnam monuments, Korean War, Revolutionary, all our monuments.
They're actually tearing down slave statues now.
Well, it was like I told you last night, where they were defacing the monument for the 54th Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was, at that time, referred to as a colored unit.
Yeah.
That was the proper terminology in the 1860s.
Right.
And it was respectful to call them that. I don't get the racism. I don't. I've always said the racism is the vessel in which the socialism was placed in.
Well, I think from the get-go with George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, all of it, I don't think race ever played a part in it. I just think somebody manufactured race being a part of it because it was a white man, white officer, and a black suspect.
If someone is racist, you can tell. There will be traits. You can look into their past and go, okay, well, yeah, this person was racist. But for the most part, you can't ascribe racism when you see someone doing something.
Yeah.
You can't just go, oh, well, that's a white man doing that to a black man. He has to be racist.
And racism is one of the easiest things to bring up against someone, but it's also one of the hardest things for them to disprove.
No.
I mean, you can call someone a racist, and how do they say I'm not a racist? I mean, what's the right way? How do they prove they're not?
I think that's going to be my new thing on like social media. When a Democrat pisses me off, I'm like, well, stop being racist. And I'll be like, argue with that fucker. Like, come on. You can't argue that.
It's whatever's going on, and I think, just my own personal opinion, the architect of this chaos knew what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's many architects. Racism is a touchy subject, not just in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, go to Mexico. Go to Mexico if you're from Guatemala. I mean, they hate the Guatemalans. Most of them do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a problem. It's everywhere in the United States. It's always going to be some sort of racism. It doesn't matter where you go.
Be a Caucasian in South Africa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's no bueno.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, be a Caucasian in Mexico.
Yeah.
At this point, be a Caucasian in America.
I was going to say, be a Caucasian in Atlanta and see what happens.
Yeah.
Risky business.
It is.
This has got a broader spectrum. I mean, attacking your own people.
No.
Attacking city governments that are basically, in a roundabout way, on your side.
Mm-hmm.
What's the end product? There's something else here we're not seeing.
Communism.
Let's talk about that. We got a few minutes left. Let's talk the Chaz. You said there was a shooting in the Chaz.
Yes, there was a shooting in the Chaz. It took them a little longer to get frisky than I thought it was going to, but yeah, there was a shooting in the Chaz. There's no details right now, and I do believe they have allowed police to investigate, which if I was a cop in the jurisdiction, I'd have been like, you're on your own, buddy. You took my precinct. You can investigate it. You have the tools. But there was definitely a shooting in the Chaz.
Well, I mean, to join in with you, first of all, if you wanted to investigate that crime, this is something that a lot of people, well, especially in that area, don't realize. We have to have a lot of training on crime scene investigation, court procedure, civil rights. If the police do go in there, the crime scene's contaminated.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
When a crime scene is contaminated, you just lost the case.
Yeah.
I mean, because your evidence is gone. I'm anxious to see what the warlord there is going to do, because this is in his neighborhood.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to get a tan and change my name to Jesus. Because it is dangerous out here to be a white boy.
Well, you're exactly right. It is. And it's dangerous to be white. It's dangerous to have morals. It's dangerous to basically travel down some of our streets, which are less than a half a tank of gas away from us right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Atlanta's not that far from us.
It's about a 2-hour drive. Yeah.
I can be there in an hour and a half, depending on police presence on the interstate.
The last time I went through Atlanta, I like to have gotten ran over by a log truck, and I was running 80.
Yeah, Atlanta's one of those places where you either move or you don't.
Anymore, because you're dead.
Yes.
Because you've now been ran over.
And it is not uncommon to see cops. Atlanta PD.
I'm pretty sure I got flipped off by a cop for not going fast enough.
Fulton County Sheriff booking it 80, 90 miles an hour down the interstate, just keeping up with the flow of traffic.
Absolutely. And when I was on the interstate going through Atlanta, no, I don't remember which one it was. They all look the same to me. It's an officer's safety nightmare. You can't safely pull a motorist over and conduct business on the side of the road for speeding or anything, because you're going to get ran over.
Yeah.
Here we go. Who wants to get ran over on the side of the interstate for what we make?
Yeah.
I was wondering if y'all could indulge me for just a second.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
My son's about to leave. He's going to Fort Lee, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just like to know an honest opinion of 18-year-olds and what they possess while all this is going on, because I'm 46.
Yeah.
it's completely alien to me what's going on. I just want to know what it looks like from an 18-year-old. Is it one of those where, okay, it'll work itself out, we've always been taken care of by the adults. What's going to happen now? Are they concerned that this country, in my opinion, and I have facts to back that up, is falling? I mean,
yeah.
What you got? You're on the spot now.
I know. All right, can y'all hear me again? Am I at the right spot?
No, we can't hear you at all.
Oh, okay. So
I'm messing with you.
Okay, good. Well, he really put me on the spot there. But, God, I hate you for this. But really, we're at, like, what's going to happen next? Because we're like, are we even going to get to see America, like, grow old like our parents got to or our great-grandparents got to? We didn't get the romanticism of coming back after winning a world war, of supporting the troops when they were in Vietnam. We didn't get to see America united together after 9/11. Like, we didn't get to see the beauty of that as a nation. We've always just seen, like, the downfall is what it seems like of this nation as a whole. Mm-hmm. And it just reminds me a lot of, like, the fascist takeover in Germany. And that's just my opinion on it, and I can't speak for everybody because I come from a small town where we have a very centralized viewpoint. Even the Democrats here are not really Democrats like you would see in Birmingham and other places like that, and that's just my views there. Yeah. But also, a lot of people my age think the two-party system's a little outdated because it's forcing you to pick an extremity to an extremity here. You know what I mean?
You're picking between a douche or a turd sandwich.
Yeah, really, you are. like you don't have that middleman. You don't get the good third-party candidates. They don't have a chance. Like, you either got to be far left or far right. You don't get that middle ground that, like, the people in my generation are really seeking. Like,
right.
We support guns, but I know some of them, they're pro-choice, but they still support guns. But who are they going to vote for, Democrat or Republican? Because there's no Republican that does both, or no Democrat that does both.
Might I suggest coming over to the libertarian side?
Yeah, really, but
Come on over.
When you run as a third party, you're going to get smoked by people who either vote all Republican or all Democrat. Those guys just don't stand a fair chance at this point anymore.
But we do have cookies.
Right.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. We're running out of time. So real quick, don't forget to go on Facebook. Look us up, like us, follow us, interact with us there at Two Beards Talking. Let us know what you think, and let us know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. Again, big shout-out to the troops, to the men and women serving overseas, and on the home front, we appreciate everything y'all are doing for us. Keep up the good work and come home safe. We're all rooting for you here back home. And a special thank you to our guest, Ross Greenwood, for being on the show with us. We do appreciate it. Yeah. I got nothing else. Matt, you got anything?
No, I think that's a good place to leave it.
I think we'll leave it there then. So thanks for tuning in. This has been Two Beards Talking. I am Daniel Sanders.
And I'm Matt Lassiter.
Thanks for listening, everybody.